back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Connor Williams, and I'm here with the opposition view, joined by Neil from Love McGrath Pod. First things first, mate. Hello to you and welcome to the channel.
Thanks a million for having me on. Yeah, it's good to be here. It's good to chat to you guys. It's good to chat to anybody from Everton. I've got a soft spot for Everton. Just I suppose really is with the fact that Villa and Everton being the oldest game, or the longest running game, I think, or whatever fixture, in the top flight. So it's nice, always nice to chat to you guys.
Brilliant to hear. First of all, mate, give me your thoughts on how Villa are doing. Just give me your thoughts on Villa overall to start off with.
The sky is falling down, Connor. The sky is falling down. We lost to Bournemouth 2-0 at the weekend, as I'm sure people would have seen. And then there was interviews given afterwards, and they were taken out of context, it turned out. And it turned out players were injured and they were put on a bench because we didn't have any other cover at centre half. And there was just a lot of, it went from very much an optimistic Saturday morning to a burn it down Saturday night, and I've never seen it go from 0 to 90 that quick as it did at the weekend. But so there's a massive everybody is kind of pointing the finger in different directions from a fan base point of view, at either the players or the manager or the club in general. And this could be a weird one on Saturday. This could be a weird one. If Everton get a goal in the first 5 minutes, I'm not going to be in Villa Park, and I kind of wouldn't want to be either, because it could turn very, very ugly.
What are your sort of hopes for this season? Obviously, you mentioned that there's already hit a bit of a road bump. What are your hopes for the say now in the end of the season? What are your hopes for Villa? What should they be achieving?
Yeah, so I suppose I meant to clarify what I said previously is I'm more on the sunny side of optimism. I think with Aston Villa Football Club, yes, there's a couple of things that I would love ironed out. I don't think the system is right. I don't think the setup is right, but I think there's a core group of players there that a lot of other managers in the league are very envious of. And with that in mind, I think that Steven Gerrard should be looking like we finished 14th last season. We shouldn't have finished 14th with the players that we had. The club has always said that they wanted to finish higher than the 11th place position we had under Dean Smith the year previous, and that's why they actually made the change. And then we ended up finishing in a lower position. So, with all that said, I think that the 11th place position is definitely the lower end benchmark that we would be looking at. And I actually think the club wouldn't be happy unless we were somewhere in single digits, 9th and upwards. I think it's where the club should be looking at based on the squad that we have. But if you keep on throwing in 2-0 performances away at Bournemouth and can't defend set pieces, well, then you're not going to achieve that 9th position. So for me, I still think it is achievable. It's one game out of 38. We're going to beat teams we were expected to lose to, and we're going to lose to teams that we were expected to beat, like we did at the weekend. And that's just the nature of football. But the finger needs to come out pretty quickly for this club if they are going to achieve those goals.
And obviously you mentioned the out of context stuff, and we'll get on to transfers in a little bit. Before we do that though, because I want to ask you about Oli Watkins and stuff like that. Give me your thoughts on Everton coming into the game, your thoughts on what you've seen so far from the outside in. It's always nice to get a perspective from somebody who isn't so hyper bold in the club.
I'm going to be really honest. I don't have a clue what to think of Everton coming into this game, and the reason being is because obviously Frank Lampard came in late last season. Did I think he was the right man for the job? Time will tell. I still don't know if Steven Gerrard is the right man for the job at Aston Villa. So time is going to be the greatest eye opener with regards to that one. And I think that Everton have had a big shot in the arm this week. Obviously, you guys played. I think it was Chelsea at the weekend. I can't remember. Yeah, it was Chelsea, and you performed pretty well, I suppose, really considering the amount of players that you were down. Central defence has been an area of concern for you guys. Ben Godfrey then goes away, breaks his ankle. Unfortunately, a nice player and somebody that Everton could ill afford to be without for the whole season, and it looks unfortunately like he will be. But then you go in, you buy England international Conor Cody, you go in, you buy Idrissa Gueye, you buy Onana. Is that his name from the Belgian international? It looks like you're going to bring in that guy from Rennes, the tall, rangy striker whose name I can't pronounce. Looks like he's going to come in. So, like, I would have fancied like if you were to ask me this question before today when all these players came through the door, I would have said, I think this is one Villa can win, even though we're in a bit of turmoil. But you've got four new faces through the door. One obviously being Mister dressing room bringer together in Connor Cody, going to be playing alongside James Tarkowski. That's not going to be an easy centre half partnership to work against. And then you've got a lot of movement and steel in midfield and Idrissa Gueye, which to be honest with you, you guys last year were missing any bit of steel in midfield whatsoever. Like Alan didn't do it for you guys. Doucouré scored goals for you guys at times, but just wasn't able to provide that steel in midfield. And if you guys had a good double pivot, a good defensive double pivot there, which Everton probably needed last season, you wouldn't have been anywhere near the perilous position that you were in. So, completely different Everton team, and that's why I'm saying I haven't a clue what to think of you guys going into Saturday, because realistically, you could have four players that have not played in the Premier League. That could turn out to be a masterstroke for you. Sorry, you could have three players that haven't played in the Premier League. That could turn out to be a masterstroke, or it could turn out to be, something that Aston Villa can prey on. Albeit that Idrissa Gueye was a former Villa player and a former Everton player. It's been a while since he's played in the league. So just to clarify that one.
I was going to say, obviously, well, we both know Idrissa Gueye and the talent he brings very well. I
Yeah.
think you're thinking the same thing as me. I said when we were linked with him, whether he can still perform to that high level he was for Everton and Villa 3 years on, because I do think the French league is somewhat easy. I'm going to say easier than the Prem, but yeah, it's a player that we both know very well. Speaking of transfers, though, what are your thoughts on Villa's signings this summer? You've made a couple. Diego Carlos. I think you've made Philip Coutinho a permanent as well. Boubacar Kamara, Olsen, who's another former Everton player, and Atkinson, Atkinson. And also give me your thoughts on Luca Dean as well, a former Everton man that I was actually really devastated to lose.
Yeah, so I think our transfer business was like we did it so early, and there was such a massive feel good factor around the club. We were like, "Geez, the club are doing some great things." Gerrard is after getting three players in, and it's not even the end. It's not even the start of. I think it was mid June by the time he had all those guys in, if not even the start of June when he had them in, and we were like, "Oh my God, we're in for a brilliant off season. We're going to probably strengthen with another midfielder and another striker and so on and so forth." And then it just dried up when we went to Australia, and the Australian tour was good. There was a lot of positivity. We made a good impression down there. The people at Townsville, Perth, and other cities, Brisbane, they all came out, and I think Villa played a blinder with their PR tour and we were undefeated, I suppose, as well, beating Leeds, Brisbane Roar, and drawing with Manchester United as well, and then coming home to play Rennes as well in Rennes. So I think we had a pretty good pre-season, and the new signings played well. Diego Carlos is a handful at centre half. He's a brute. But the big thing is that when you've got a centre half who loves to get at people and to get physical with people, a centre half is only like you can keep the ball away from a centre half. So and Bournemouth did that brilliantly last week. And what they did then was they just found an opportunity to get Kiefer Moore on a mismatch there was actually four people standing around Kiefer Moore when he scored that goal, and it was Buendia. I can't actually. I'm going to stop because I can't remember who they were. But Buendia, who's tiny, John McGinn, who's tiny, and Matty Cash, who isn't exactly a giant, and Kiefer Moore, 6'5", and that's kind of where you need your Diego Carloses to come into play, in that situation. Albeit the mistake was made by our other centre half, Ezri Konsa, for completely misjudging the flight of the initial cross, which broke to Light Kelly, who was able to cross it back in again. But our transfer business so far, I think, is good. Boubacar Kamara looks like a real nice, tidy player. He's that good single pivot that you can play workhorse. You can give him 70, 80 passes to making a match, and he'll have high 80% percentage completion. So, really rounded player, a young player, broke into the French team recently as well. So, I would classify our transfer business as good so far. But if we don't bring people in over the next couple of weeks, like if we don't bring another central midfielder in and potentially another striker, although I don't think they'll spend for the sake of it in the striking department. If one more doesn't come in, I'd nearly mark it down as a transfer season as to what could have been, because other teams are now strengthening while we came out of the traps very, very quickly. Other teams are now strengthening like Everton, like Leeds, who are linked with Ismail Assar for 28 million today and have done some good business. And it's very easy to get left behind, because remember, Robin Olsen, sub goalkeeper, Augustinsson, sub left back, and Philippe Coutinho, who is here already. We just made it a permanent transfer. Now, you asked me about Luca Dean as well, and I like Luca Dean. I will I like him, but I also would like to strangle him as well at other times. And the reason I'd like to do that is because he's such a big part of our attack. He's a huge part of our attack. Like, it's almost like every second ball has to be filtered out to him to cross the ball in, and that's why I want to strangle him, because he's so good at getting into those attacking positions, and he's pretty good at going back as well. But the fact that he's there the whole time, we overutilize him for crossing the ball, and we're useless in the air at crossing the ball. So while I like what he's brought to the club, he's definitely been an upgrade in the attacking department, and the likes of Matty Target that we had. Albeit I liked Matty Target, he's an upgrade there. At times he gets caught too far up the field and has to really bust a lung to come back, and at other times he's probably just too much of an easy out ball for Aston Villa, that we don't go through the centre. Makes Coutinho look bad, because Coutinho could finish the first half with only 18 touches of the ball, and Dina could have 45 or 50, and we could have 10, 15 crosses gone into the box. And that's not the way I feel that we should be playing, and that's not the way that 90% of Aston Villa fans feel that we should be playing. So Luca Dean, the player, nothing wrong with him. Luca Dean in this system is it's too easy for us to give him the ball and cross the ball in, and while these crosses are very good, we have no central striker, and it's that's where a lot of the frustration from last weekend came from. Crosses, nothing on the end of them. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with that at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. When he left us, we had sort of, it split the fan base right down the middle. A lot of us saying we'll lose a lot in attacking outlet, which I think we do, even with Mikalenko. A couple saying he can't defend, and interestingly, you've just said he's okay. You didn't say he was like brilliant as he is going forward, which I think is fair enough. But you did say he's good at going backwards, which would mean that you, like me, you think he can defend. But I do agree with the pace thing as well. I think if he was the bust along thing, if he was a little bit faster, it'd be an unreal left back, because he's not blessed with the pace of like a Ferland Mendy at Real Madrid or something. He does have to really push a gear, doesn't he, to get back along that side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just interesting to hear another fan's point of view now that he's at you. It's interesting. The other player I saw today, Oli Watkins, just give us a quick thought on that. I've heard he's rumoured to be potentially leaving, 33 million.
Our director, Tommy Jordan, our brilliant director of PR and director of public relations or whatever, came out and essentially, and I won't say essentially, because he actually did quote tweet that and said this is a load of shit, a load of nonsense. And he basically said, why do they keep on writing this stuff? It was from Football Insider. As far as I would be very, very surprised if Oli Watkins was to leave for 33 million. A lot of this stuff about the Athletic came out today as well and poo-pooed the Mings and Gerrard rift. They're supposed to. Apparently, I've read today that Gerrard has fallen out with 4 or 5 different players. And I think what it comes from is heavily excerpted interview he gave with BBC West Midlands last week, where that quote Mings, I don't have it word for word, but it was, when he looks me in the eye and tells me he's ready to play, then I know he's ready to play. And then the comment went on to say, at the moment he took a knock, he's injured, he has a dodgy groin, that's why he didn't start today. So the comment goes on like that, but that excerpt of the comment was taken out and it was splashed everywhere. And that, along with the fact that when Steven Gerrard was asked about Philippe Coutinho, did somebody see him as a left playing on a left or playing as a 10? He said, I think I know Philippe better than you, don't you? Or, I think I know Philippe pretty well, don't you? Like that. And then people just went, oh, he's having a rift, he's falling out with the media and everything. So I'm not gonna rewrite the history of our own podcast. When I initially saw the excerpts of both of those interviews, I was pretty rabid myself, and I went, this guy needs to stop talking about players. And today and yesterday, when the light was shone, and the whole lot of the context, I've no problem. I have no problem with walking back some comments that I made and stuff like that, because context is king, and it's only people who can't turn around and admit, wait, if I'd known this at the time, I would have said something completely different. So now I'm willing to have a different outlook on it. And with regards to the Oli Watkins thing, that was just putting two and two together and making 5 or 6 from that. I would be very surprised if Oli Watkins leaves. If any of our 2 strikers leave, I would imagine it would be Danny Ings, because he was rumoured to be leaving earlier on. But to be honest with you, I would take any bet from anybody that neither of the 2 of them leave, because it's an area that we are it's an area that while we spent a lot of money in, we're not getting the return from, and I would say we'll add as opposed to subtract in that area.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I was just curious because I saw it just before I came on to join you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Everton's signings? Obviously, you mentioned Onana. Give us your thoughts on the other, McNeil, for example.
I completely forgot about McNeil. Completely forgot all about him. Yeah, it's like I like I like the signings. But I think that a lot of these signings might have been down the road before you guys knew that Dominic Calvert-Lewin was going to be out for 6 or 7 weeks. Um, like the striking department for you guys, we've been talking about our striking department and the fact that they're just not hitting the back of the net. I don't even know who your striker is going to be at the weekend. Is it going to be Solomon Rondon? Is he still there?
Yeah,
And
probably.
outside of that, I don't know who you're going to play striker. So it's so for me, um regardless of the guys that you brought in, and you are most likely going to bring in that striker from Rennes on loan whose name I can't pronounce. But yeah, I think the work that you've done has been good. I think, as I said, midfield needed to be upped, and I think Onana and Gray are going to do that job for you and make you guys a lot different team than playing Andre Gomez, who, by the way, has the best hair in the Premier League. I'm on record as saying it for years and years and years. He has the best hair in the Premier League, but he ain't a six. He's not a number six, and you guys have been playing him there for a while as a six. And Villa have had some great days in Goodison and in Villa Park, just running straight at him at times. And I'm just going to be disappointed if he's not going to be there, or that he's not going to be there now with your two new midfield signings. So good business. Dwight McNeil, I think, once again brings that crossing. You need to cross the ball into Dominic Calvert-Lewin too. So you're going to have Dwight McNeil in there, and why not? 22 years of age. It was only when you guys signed him that I looked, and his age was, what the way they put the age in brackets, and I was there. He's only 22. I would have put 26, 27 on him, but no, I think he was a shrewd signing, and yeah, I think that you guys can be happy with what you've done because you needed to invest, unlike what happened with Rafa at the start of last season.
Yeah, I think that's a fair reflection. Just point of view, if Andre Gomez is playing, I think our fans will absolutely implode. I think he's one that we're all hoping will hopefully leaves this summer, as I think his time at Everton is probably up. You mentioned it briefly as well, but give me your thoughts. I'm going to have to ask you to relive Bournemouth and the defeat. Give me your thoughts on that and what specifically went wrong for Villa.
Conceding after 3 minutes allowed Bournemouth to, like, there's times when Bournemouth has 7 people in front of their goals in their box and just said cross the ball all day long. Mepham, Lloyd Kelly, big strapping tall men. That's what killed us. We couldn't break them down. We couldn't even play through the center against Bournemouth, which was what was the most galling thing, because you've got somebody like Philippe Coutinho, World Cup winner, former, I don't know, what was he, former most expensive player in the world, whatever. And then you've got Emi Buendia, who comes on, who's not too shabby, really good player. And there's actually conversations as to which one should actually start and works better in the lineup. We couldn't break him down through the middle. We were kept to shots from outside the box, which were wayward, and bar one from Boubacar Kamara that went every which way other than into the back of the net. And then we had 32 crosses, of which only 6 were successful. So we got stung by 2 set pieces against the run of play. We owned the ball and we could do nothing with it. And we're playing against an Everton team who, if I'm not mistaken, had very good success, very good set piece numbers over the course of against the Chelsea game, and we're going to be coming up against Connor Cody and James Tarkowski, who are well able to play the ball in the air and are used to, defending long balls and defending crosses all day long. So I just, for me, unless we play through the middle, and as I just said to you there, that you guys have plugged that hole potentially with Onana and Gray. For me, a set piece maybe is where we're gonna get the joy against Everton, but we couldn't do that against Bournemouth last week either, and that was the biggest thing. We had zero creativity and we had 2 stupid mistakes at the back, losing players, losing Lloyd Kelly twice essentially is what happened, and then it ended up in 2 goals, and it's really frustrating because the players are better than what they're showing, and they're better than what they've shown probably in the calendar year of 2022.
Weird sense of deja vu, you know. Weird sense of deja vu. Then a lot of the stuff you said, I think I've said myself and heard from a number of fans with us. Um, Obviously, you mentioned very early on. You said time will tell with Steven Gerrard, and
Mm.
so give me your thoughts on that. Then, why did you think he was the right appointment at the time? And from what you've seen since he's been appointed, give me your thoughts on his style, what he's trying to implement, and do you think he's the man to get you in those single digits that you're hoping Aston Villa finish in this season?
Um, Initially, I was skeptical on Steven Gerrard. I warmed to him because I think his backroom team was so highly thought of. I spoke to a lot of people, a lot of coaches in involved at pretty high levels in not just the English game, in the UK games, Scotland as well, and I had some of them on the podcast, and they really kind of opened my eyes. They said, listen, Michael Beale and Tom Culshaw are really good, you know, and Gerrard himself knows what he's doing. So, from that point of view, I kind of warmed to the package that was there. The one thing I'm always going to have, and it's the only reason at the moment whereby I kind of I grit my teeth towards him being the Aston Villa manager, and it's quite pertinent because it happened, or it was alleged to have happened, and after everything came out, it didn't. Is that sometimes he throws the players under the bus and he mentions players by name. And yes, there's that tough love element that people used to love with Alex Ferguson and all these guys. But for me, he's like his feet aren't under the table long enough to be calling out at Tyrone Mings, to be calling out whoever he wants to call out. And you might have got away with it at Rangers, but because he was getting results. But when you're not getting results, you can't do that. So for me, I think he needs to be a small bit more vanilla in his post match stuff. What he's trying to do on the field, I'm going to say I'm not sure any Aston Villa fan will be able to tell you exactly what he's doing on the field, which is another slight worry considering we're 9 months down the road. Now, losing Michael Beale and Neil Critchley not being able to go on pre-season tour with Aston Villa due to some passport issues, he wasn't able to go, might be a slight excuse. But at the same time, we're still seeing the same type of football that was played 9 months ago when he first came. Well, actually, when he first came into the club, it was different. We were playing lots of little triangles around the middle of the field. We were dragging players out of position. We were overloading one side, switching to the other side, and we were getting quick attacks. Now we're not. Now we're just getting the ball to Matty Cash and Luca Dean and hoping for the best with a cross. And I think Steven Gerrard needs to like I need to think he needs to be more decisive. He needs the fullbacks. The fullbacks can't be as high as they are. When you've got attacking players the likes of Leon Bailey, Emi Buendia, Philippe Coutinho, if you're not trusting them to be able to fashion something and making sure that we go wide out to our fullbacks to cross the ball in, well, then that's on you. It's not on the players, I think. Saying that, I think the players are all experienced enough. I think that they all have enough footballing intelligence and enough kind of credit in the bank to be able to turn around mid-game and go, lads, this crossing stuff isn't working. Give it to me. I'm going to take the bull by the horns here and see what I can do. So there's a lot of blame to go around from that point of view. But with regards to the identity, that's the biggest. That's the biggest custard pie that has been thrown at Steven Gerrard at the moment. Is Aston Villa don't have an identity in attack, and we don't have an identity in defence either. And that's the worrying thing I think for a lot of Aston Villa fans at the moment. And then the last part of your question, where you asked to see the man to get us into that ninth position and above, I think he can be. I do think he can be, but I think he needs to. I think that there needs to be. He needs to. The stubbornness of consistently using the same formation and the same personnel and expecting something to change needs to change. That has to change, and I think that we probably need to be a small bit more a small bit less ideological in the way that we look at the game and be a bit more pragmatic and say, okay, right, we need to play two at the pivot, double pivot as opposed to a single pivot, and go to a 4-2-3-1 potentially or something like that, because the 4-3-3 is very open, and it's even more open when your fullbacks go forward and you're left with Konza and Diego Carlos at the back on their own. And I'll go on record as saying it. I think that that's one of the biggest reasons why Tyrone Mings made so many mistakes last year, because he had an absolute acreage to cover at the back for a lot of times last year, and there's only so many times you can keep doing that, keep trying to snuff out counter attacks before stuff catches up with you and start making silly mistakes. So there's a lot in it. I'm willing to give him time. I'm willing to. I think that he can do it, but I think that there's some obvious little tweaks that need to be made, and he's the manager, so he's the only one who can make them. So he has to be able to see it himself.
Just this is just playing devil's advocate, but obviously as the Premier League comes up, loads of people do their predictions. One of them is first to get sacked. Frank Lampard's name got thrown around an awful lot. Do you worry that Steven Gerrard might fall into that if results don't pick up? What are your board like? It's more just what are your board like with knife edge decisions like that?
So here is where conspiracy theory land will hit hard in Villa Twitter, because Stephen Gerrard is Christian Purzlow's man. Christian Purzlow is CEO of Aston Villa at the moment. Purzlow and Gerrard have long-term relationship, within the game. So I think he's going to be given a lot of time, and we would have to be in the bottom three with no hope of, like, with things really, really sinking for him to get the boot. So I don't think he's in danger of getting the boot anytime soon. But could he be sacked this season? He could. There's no manager in the league that wouldn't get sacked if you were in danger of going down. You guys saw that last season, and I think that Steven Gerrard could suffer that fate. But will he? I don't think so. I don't think he'll be sacked this year.
No worries. Yeah, again, like I said, just playing devil's advocate, wanting to know what
Yeah.
your board
Well,
are
you
like.
see, but it's a funny one. It's a funny one as well, because I say that now, poo-pooing a lot of the rumors that are going around about maybe dressing room upheaval and stuff like that. But if those rumors are true, then that adds another kind of wrinkle, another kind of idiosyncrasy into the conversation. But I hate dealing in stuff like that because it's so intangible, that going just on the what's happening on the field, I would be surprised to see him sacked unless we were on complete and utter free fall altogether.
No worries. Who do you think will be your starting lineup then, out of curiosity?
Martinez will definitely be in goals. Matty Cash and one full back, Dina, the other full back, and Diego Carlos will start in central defence. I think if Callum Chambers or Mings, I don't think he goes to Conte again. Conte was the fault for both of the goals at the weekend. He's also just coming off an ACL or a MCL injury. He shouldn't even be back until the end, back in training. Never mind playing games until the end of August. But he's made a miraculous recovery to get back in something like 8 weeks when he was told it was going to be 16. So it's really great. Like, fair play to him for getting back that quickly. I don't think he starts him. I think he goes with Mings or Chambers. I'm going to put my money in Chambers, that he will start with Callum Chambers. Callum Chambers has been an unbelievable purchase for us for 2 million. Actually, I think it was rumored that it was 2 million. Then it came out that we actually got him for free. The Arsenal just needed guys' wages off the books. But he's been a really good signing for us, a really, really steady signing. I think he could start in there, and he's been one of the standout players in pre-season. Boubacar Kamara will be playing in that single pivot. I would imagine we're going to see Douglas Luiz and John McGinn. Jacob Ramsey had a pretty indescript first half. I don't think that they're going to start with him this weekend. And then up top is where it could be anyone from six. It really could. But I'm going to say Leon Bailey starts, Phil Coutinho starts, and Oli Watkins starts up top. And I think the only change would be Danny Ings. It could very easily be Coutinho, Buendia, and Danny Ings that starts up there. There's a lot of different permutations in there, because no matter who we've put in that three, they've looked substandard for the ability that we know that they have. And that even goes back to last season as well. So there will be a lot of eyes on our strike force to see if we can do something at home. And that's why I think that if we aren't creating chances, and if we lose a goal early, with the fact that we're not creating chances, there could be some murmurings around Villa Park at the weekend.
My final question for you, mate, is give me your score predictions.
I am going to go with. I'm going to go with 1-1. I think Everton will have a bounce with new players. How many of them play, I don't know. Let me caveat it. if your midfield is upgraded with those new players, I think it's going to be a 1-1. I think if you trot out some of the players that you've had, I think Villa could sneak it 1-0. Just because I don't see who's going to play striker. I don't see if Solomon Rondon is going to have that field day against Diego Carlos. I think they match up quite well together. They're both people who like to get physical on the ball and so on. But I think the battle is going to be won and lost for you guys in midfield, and for us, it's going to be whether our strikers or our three attacking players can really come into the game. So if all those guys can be integrated and can play day one and come into that midfield and offer that small bit of effervescence that Everton have been looking for, then I think that it'll be a 1-1 draw. If not, I think that Villa might win this. I think it's kind of one of those ones whereby the players are going to go out and go, we kind of have to win this. We kind of have to do it, So it's very early to be saying that kind of stuff, but I think there is that kind of feeling around this game.
Interesting. Yeah, I think, well, it sounds weird to say because you don't get them very often, but I think it's got 0-0 written on it potentially, or
could do.
I can't see us scoring more than one goal. So, like you said, either 1-1 or 0-0, or I mean, you could absolutely score more than that. But with, like you said, with our strike force, I just can't see us scoring more than. And I think it might be a set piece goal for us. I think Tarkowski's probably our best bet for that. But that is all I've got time for, mate. Thank you for coming on and speaking to me. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks very much, guys, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Don't forget, guys, to subscribe to the channel, comment down below your thoughts and predictions for the Villa game. Like the video as well, and go check out Neil as well. The link will be in the description down below for the Love of Paul McGrath Villa podcast. So go check that out down below. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you guys soon.